Title: Inferno's Edge. Chapter 1. The Outbreak. Axel trembled as the crackling radio on his desk buzzed to life, filling the faint room with urgency. The Navy had seen his fair share of battles, but nothing could have prepared him for the message that now echoed through the speaker. Emergency alert. A breach has occurred in Sector 17. Repeat, Sector 17 has been compromised. All personnel stand by. Axel sat up, muscles tense. Sector 17 was the government's most secure lab facility, buried deep within the city's underground, known for housing classified research. If something had gone wrong there, the consequences could be catastrophic. Axel put on his military vest decorated with badges from past missions, adjusted his goggles, and walked to the command center. The massive underground bunker, where the military monitored the city's security, buzzing with activity. Screens flashed with red alerts and urgent messages. The air was thick with tension. "What's the situation, Commander?" Axel asked, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. Commander Iris, a seasoned general with a sharp gaze, stood near the central console. She turned to Axel, her expression unpleasant. "Axel, we have a breach at the Sector 17 lab. A virus, something bioengineered, has escaped containment. And it's worse than we feared. It's spreading faster than we can contain it." Axel's mind raced. Sector 17's work had always been top secret, even to him. But hearing that a virus had escaped, it sounded like something out of a nightmare. Without wasting time, Axel headed to the edge of the city, where the first signs of the outbreak had been reported. The once bustling streets were now very quiet, abandoned by citizens seeking shelter. But Axel's sharp senses picked up the faint dashing of creatures lurking in the shadows. His eyes moved to an alleyway, where he saw a man, his eyes clouded and his body jerking in unnatural movements. The infected people let out an animalistic hiss, his teeth snapping as he charged. Axel leaped out of the way just in time, his heart pounding. Axel's training kicked in. He neutralized the threat, his mind already racing through possibilities. If the virus was affecting people this rapidly, they had limited time before the city would fall completely. The infected people's behavior was unpredictable, aggressive, and flesh-hungry. This was no ordinary virus. This was a bioweapon. As Axel collected samples from the undead, he received a crackling transmission on his comm device. "Axel, you need to get out of there. The city is under full quarantine. Nothing in, nothing out." "Understood," Axel replied. "But I need answers first. What's the source of this virus?" There was silence on the other end before Commander Iris's voice returned, low and troubled. "The source is the lab itself. This was a government experiment gone wrong, Axel. And the only cure is hidden in the original lab facility located in the heart of the jungle, miles outside the city." Axel's breath seized. The jungle outside the city was a dangerous place. Few ventured there, and fewer returned. It was a stretch out, thick wilderness filled with dangerous creatures. But now, with the added threat of a viral outbreak, it has become a death trap. "Axel, this mission, it's a long shot," Commander Iris said, her tone heavy with doubt. "But you're our best shot. If anyone can find the cure, it's you." Axel tightened the grip on his blade. "I'll get it done," he said, determination filling his voice. He knew there was no other option. The fate of the entire city rested on him. As he moved toward the city's edge, Axel couldn't shake the growing sense of responsibility. He had fought countless battles, but this time, the stakes were different. He wasn't just fighting for his fellow soldiers, he was fighting for everyone. The journey to the jungle would be dangerous, but Axel knew he couldn't do it alone. He needed a team. And there was only one other he trusted with his life. Leo, his brother, a soldier who had worked on classified projects in Sector 17 but was stationed in the city before the outbreak. Axel set off, leaving behind the safety of the city walls and heading into the unknown. The jungle appears ahead, dark and dreadful. And within its depths, the cure awaited, if he could survive long enough to find it. Chapter 2. The Quarantine Zone. The sun was setting behind the jungle as Axel stood at the edge of the city, staring at the immeasurable space of what it had become. Once a bustling metropolis where people lived in harmony, it was now a shadow of its former glory, a quarantine zone full of danger. The virus had turned peaceful citizens into zombie-like creatures, and Axel knew he was the only one who could stop it. Armed with his high-tech weapons, a plasma spear, and an energy shield, he adjusted the strap of his supply bag, taking in the sight before him. His heart thundered, not just with the pressure of the mission, but with the weight of something deeper. It wasn't just about completing an assignment. He had personal stakes here. His younger brother, Leo, had been stationed in the city when the outbreak began. No word had come from him since the quarantine was put in place. As Axel moved forward, his communicator crackled. "Axel, we're counting on you," said Commander Iris's voice, firm and unyielding. "Retrieve the cure. But remember, you are entering the heart of the danger zone. The virus is evolving, and the infected are becoming more unpredictable." "Understood," Axel replied, his tone steady, but his mind racing with thoughts of Leo. "I'll get the cure, but I'm also going to find my brother." There was silence on the other end before the commander responded. "That's a personal matter, Axel. Your primary objective is the cure." "I know, Commander," Axel said, though he knew he would do both, complete the mission and bring his brother back. As Axel stepped across the city border, the air changed. It was thick with tension and a faint odor of decay. He activated his helmet's infrared vision, scanning the area. Buildings, once vibrant with life, were now crumbling, windows shattered, and streets littered with dirt. The scary silence was occasionally broken by distant growling, signs of the infected. Axel took a deep breath, moving cautiously through the desolate streets. His senses were on high alert, and every step felt like a walk through a minefield. His first encounter came faster than expected. From an alleyway, two infected stumbled into view, their eyes glazed, and their bodies twitching unnaturally. Their once friendly faces were full of hunger. They were no longer the city's residents, they were monsters. Axel tightened his grip on his plasma spear, moving swiftly. His training kicked in as he dodged the first attack, bringing it down in one swift motion, incapacitating it instantly. The other grabbed Axel's legs, but he was prepared, activating his energy shield just in time to block the attack. With a swift strike, the second attacker was down. Axel's breathing was heavy, not from exertion, but from the emotional weight of what he'd just done. These creatures were once alive, once part of a community, and now they were nothing more than shells of their former selves. He couldn't dwell on it, though. There were more ahead, and the mission wasn't going to complete itself. As he moved deeper into the city, Axel began to notice strange patterns. The infected weren't just wandering aimlessly anymore, they were moving in groups, almost like they had some form of organization. And they seemed to be growing more intelligent, anticipating his moves. Was the virus really evolving? Axel's mind raced as he reached a crossroads. On one side was the path to the city's central lab, where the cure was rumored to be hidden. On the other side was the military outpost where Leo had been stationed. For a moment, Axel stood frozen, torn between his mission and his personal need to find his brother. Leo could still be alive, Axel muttered to himself, turning towards the outpost. He moved cautiously, knowing that the deeper he went, the more dangerous it became. The outpost was in ruins, its walls collapsed and taken over by the infected. Axel's heart sank. Was there any chance Leo had survived? As he approached the central command building, he noticed fresh signs of struggle, broken equipment, scattered supplies. Someone had been here recently. Suddenly, a sound caught his attention. It was faint, but unmistakable footsteps, quick and hurried, not the sluggish movement of the infected. Axel turned sharply, raising his plasma spear, ready to strike, when a figure emerged from the shadows. It was Leo. "Axel?" Leo's voice was soft, his uniform torn and dirty, but his eyes were clear, uninfected. Leo. Axel rushed forward, pulling his brother into a tight embrace. Relief flooded him, but there was no time to celebrate. "We have to move," Leo said, pulling away. "The infected are evolving faster than we thought. They're not just humans anymore, they're becoming something else, something more dangerous. I've seen them working together, strategizing." Axel nodded. "I've noticed it too. But we're not leaving yet. There's a cure in the lab, and we need to get it." Leo hesitated, his expression tense. "You don't understand. The virus is mutating so rapidly that by the time we get the cure, it might already be useless." Axel's was determined. "We still have to try." Together, the brothers made their way to the central lab. The infected had become more aggressive, more organized, and every encounter left them more shaken. Axel's mind was racing. What if Leo was right? What if the cure they were risking their lives for wouldn't even work? As they approached the lab's entrance, Axel noticed something strange, a group of infected standing guard. It was almost as if they knew the importance of the lab. They were no longer mindless creatures, they were protecting something. Axel exchanged a glance with Leo. "We'll have to go in fast and quiet," he whispered. Leo nodded, gripping his weapon tightly. "I'll cover you. Get inside and find the cure." With a deep breath, Axel charged forward, his plasma spear cutting through the infected with precision. Leo fought beside him, his movements sharp and calculated. They were a perfect team, but the odds were against them. Just as Axel reached the lab's entrance, a chilling roar echoed through the air. A massive figure emerged from the shadows, a mutated version of the infected, larger and more dangerous than anything Axel had faced before. The cure was nowhere to be found. "We need to move, now," Leo screamed, but Axel was already inside, searching desperately for the cure. Time was running out. Just in, the mutated creature breaks through the door, standing between the brothers and their escape. The virus is evolving, and now Axel must decide, fight or flee. The fate of the city, and possibly the world, hangs in the balance. Chapter 3. A desperate rescue. The mutated creature stood between them, a twisted abomination of muscle and rage, its glowing eyes locked onto Axel. Axel gripped his weapon tightly, exchanging a brief glance with Leo, knowing that they had to work together. The creature thrust its massive claws slashing through the air. Axel dodged left while Leo charged head-on, swinging with all his might. Blows were exchanged, metal clashing against bone, but the creature was relentless. It battered them back, sending Leo crashing into a table. Blood dripped from their wounds, but stood again, determined. Every strike was met with brutal resistance, as the mutated beast seemed to grow stronger with every passing moment. Just when the fight seems lost, the creature raises its massive claw, aiming for Axel. As Leo saw the danger, he made a split-second decision. Leo threw himself in front of Axel, taking the full force of the creature's deadly attack. The claws tore into Leo, and Axel screamed in anguish as his brother fell to the ground, his life slipping away. Fueled by rage and grief, Axel charged forward with newfound strength, dodging the creature's attack and delivering a fatal blow. The beast collapsed. He knelt beside Leo, his heart breaking, but he knew he had to keep moving. There was no time to mourn. The cure was in the central lab, and the fate of the city rested on his shoulders. He must find it by all means necessary. The streets were a war zone. Axel's heart pounded as he ran through the littered roads. His eyes scanned every dark corner, every building, knowing that danger could spring out at any moment. As a battle-hardened navy, he was no stranger to chaos, but this was something else. The people infected by the virus were nothing more than mindless zombies now, driven by hunger. Suddenly he heard a desperate cry for help. Without hesitation, Axel leaped over a fallen street lamp and ran toward the sound. In the distance, a figure was surrounded by a group of infected. A woman, strong in her own right, was doing her best to fend them off. Her blade slashed through the air, knocking a few of the creatures back, but for every one she struck down, 2 more took its place. She was fast, agile, and fierce, but the crowd was too much. Axel's jaw clicked in determination. He couldn't let her fall. "Hang on," he called, raising his high-tech rifle. The infected turned toward him, their empty eyes glowing with an unhealthy green light. Axel took aim and fired. The plasma bolts raced through the air, piercing the zombies with deadly precision. In a matter of seconds, the immediate threats was neutralized, but Axel knew they wouldn't be safe for long. She looked at him, breathing heavily, her blue eyes filled with both gratitude and pain. Her shirt was messy, her body covered in scratches, but there was a strong determination in her attitude. "Thanks," she managed between breaths. "I thought that was it for me." Axel said, introducing himself. "I'm on a mission to stop this outbreak." "I'm Ava," she replied, straightening up. "I've been trying to survive ever since it all went wrong. My family," she hesitated, a shadow of sorrow crossing her face. "They didn't make it." Axel's face dropped in sympathy. "I'm sorry. This virus, it's taken too many." Ava's expression hardened. "I want to help. I need to avenge them. I won't let this city fall without a fight." Axel admired her spirit. "I'm headed to the jungle outside the city. The cure has to be hidden in the lab where this all started. I could use the help." Ava nodded. "You've got it. But first, we need to get out of the quarantine zone. This place is crawling with the infected." Together, they made their way through the streets, dodging groups of zombies as they went. Axel's rifle and Ava's quick reflexes made them a formidable team, each covering the other's blind spots. As they pressed forward, Axel couldn't help but notice the virus seemed to be evolving. The infected people were becoming more coordinated, faster. Something about this outbreak was changing, and it wasn't good. They reached a safe house, a hidden bunker used by government forces before the city was fully overrun. Axel and Ava took shelter, catching their breath. Ava sat down, her back against the cold, steel wall. "What's your story, Axel? Why risk everything for this mission?" Axel sighed, leaning his rifle against the wall. "It's my duty. I was trained for this kind of thing. But it's not just about duty anymore. This outbreak, it's personal. I lost people too." Ava gave him a solemn nod. "Then we have more in common than I thought." The two sat in silence for a moment, letting the weight of their shared losses settle between them. Then, Axel stood, determination renewed. "We'll get through this," he said, his voice firm. "We'll find that cure and stop this before it's too late." Ava rose to her feet, her eyes burning with the same fire. "I'm with you." And so, with a shared sense of purpose, Axel and Ava prepared for the next leg of their dangerous journey. They both knew that the road ahead would be dangerous, but together, they stood a chance. Chapter 4. Battle in the Heart of the City. Axel and Ava saw more and more of tension and damage as they continued to explore the metropolis that was under quarantine. The once tall buildings were in ruins, and the streets, which were once alive with activity, were deserted except for the occasional zombie staggering or the distant echo of a building collapsing. Only their footsteps and the low growls of the infected broke the oppressive calm. With a machine gun in hand, Axel searched the streets. "Stay close," he murmured to Ava. Despite being calm, there was a hint of stress in his voice. "Danger is all around us." Ava nodded while her sharp eyes moved from shadow to shadow. The zombies were not your typical adversaries. They were fast and unrelenting. Moving forward seemed like taking a step into a trap. The silence was broken by a sudden roar as they were moving through an alley. A large, mutant zombie bear emerged from the shadows and charged towards them. The virus's progression was seen in its eyes, which gleamed a horrible green color and had dried blood matted into its fur. Axel responded right away. He yelled, "Move," and pushed Ava out of the way while firing his pistol at the bear, but it did not slow down much. It was now stronger and tougher due to the infection. Ava jumped up and withdrew a dagger from her belt. In an attempt to stop the bear, she slashed at its legs as she ran around it. The creature let out a growl of rage and swung its huge paw towards her, but she was too fast, gracefully turned aside to avoid its path. Axel tightened his jaws. Unlike other zombies they had come across, this one was different. It was stronger and wouldn't back down. With haste, he withdrew a grenade from his belt and tore the pin. "Get back!" Axel threw the grenade right into the bear's path, and Ava leaped away. Fragments flew everywhere as a result of the shockwave and the loud explosion. The bear, its body ripped apart by the explosion, remained still when the dust fell. Axel ran toward the beast. He mumbled, "That was too close," and cast a sidelong glance at Ava. "They're becoming more powerful. The virus is changing and growing." Ava wiped the blood from her dagger. "And faster. If we don't find the cure soon, there won't be anyone left to save." They continued, their mutual trust growing and the tension between them slowly decreasing. Axel's tactical thinking and Ava's quick fighting abilities made them an unstoppable team. As a team, they battled through waves of zombies, each encounter stretching but also strengthening their bonds. The violence around them grew more intense as they approached the city's edge. The diseased creatures had developed into more than just mindless zombies. They were coordinated. Every step was heavy for Axel, and the pressure increased with every second that went by. A tiny number of survivors took refuge in what used to be a mall visible to Ava's eyes from a distance. They were surrounded by barricades and fighting back against a group of infected. Axel and Ava hurried to their rescue without pausing. It was a tough fight. Large groups of infected were wiped out by Axel using his explosives. As Ava leaped from zombie to zombie slitting necks, they overcame huge obstacles to penetrate the group of infected and get to the survivors. A tall, slender man moved nearer, his eyes filled with appreciation. "Thank you." Nodding, Axel caught his breath. "We're trying to find the cure. Are you familiar with it at all?" The man considered what to say, looking around at the others. "There are whispers and rumors that the virus was never intended to be treated. It was intended to change and adapt. This has long been known by the government." Ava's eyes narrowed. "What are you saying?" A man with a scar running over his face walked forward as another survivor. "The treatment may not even be available. There has been dishonesty from the government. They are now hiding the fact that they caused this disaster." Axel tightened his fists, his rage building. "We must expose them if that is the case. First, though, the outbreak must be contained." The survivors nodded in agreement. "We'll help in any way we can," the man with a scar on his face said. Axel and Ava set up camp alongside the survivors as night fell, their brains spinning from all the new information. The extent of the government's cover-up exceeded their expectations. Their goal was not only to survive, but also to find the truth and stop the government before they could cause any more harm if there really was no cure. Axel stared into the fire, his mind filled with doubts. What if we're too late? What if there's nothing left to save? Ava rested her hand on his shoulder. "We can't give up now. We've come this far. For the sake of the people we have lost and the ones who are still fighting, we must never give up." Feeling a fresh sense of purpose, Axel nodded. They had each other, and they were powerful together. Therefore, they had hope. They weren't giving up, and the fight wasn't finished yet. They got ready to move farther into the city as the new day began. They were determined to uncover the truth, no matter what the cost. Chapter 5: Secrets of the Virus. As Axel and Ava journeyed deeper into the city, the chaos around them continued to grow. The mutated zombies were becoming more aggressive, and their numbers were increasing. Axel and Ava's weapons were powerful, but it became clear that their greatest asset was the bond they had formed. They moved like a well-oiled machine, covering each other's blind spots, sharing strategies without needing to speak. The sun had begun to set, casting long shadows across the ruined cityscape. They stopped briefly to catch their breath after a particularly intense fight with a group of mutated zombies. Their energy was decreasing, but the stakes had never been higher. "We need to find out more about this virus," Axel said, panting heavily. "There has to be something we're missing." Ava nodded in agreement. "There's too much we don't know. The virus isn't just killing, it's changing them. There has to be a reason." Suddenly, a faint light caught Ava's eye. Hidden among the wreckage of a collapsed building, there was a small door, barely visible beneath the rubble. Surprised, they approached cautiously. Axel brushed aside rubles to reveal a steel door with a strange emblem engraved on it, something official. Without hesitation, they forced the door open and descended into the darkness. The bunker they entered was unlike anything they had seen before. It was a remnant of a world that had been preparing for disaster. Rows of old computer terminals blinking, their monitors casting a low glow in the room. Axel activated a terminal, and a cascade of data began to scroll across the screen. Ava's eyes widened as she read through the information. "This isn't just a bunker," Ava said, surprised. "It's a research facility. They were experimenting on people before the outbreak." Axel felt a chill creep up his spine. What kind of experiments? Ava continued reading, her face tightening with every word. The virus. It was engineered, but not just as a weapon of mass destruction. It was designed to evolve, to selectively target specific DNA. Certain people were meant to survive, others to perish. Axel couldn't believe what he was hearing. So the mutations were part of the plan all along? Ava nodded. It's worse than that. The virus was meant to create a new order of power, where the strongest would become more powerful and the rest would be wiped out. Someone wanted to reshape the world in their image. Axel slammed his fist on the table in frustration. This changes everything. We're not just dealing with a virus, we're dealing with someone's twisted vision for a new world. As they continued searching the bunker for more information, they found a map that marked a path leading to the lab where the virus was developed. But they weren't the only ones looking for answers. A sudden sound at the entrance of the bunker startled them. Axel and Ava immediately grabbed their weapons, preparing for another battle. However, instead of zombies, a lone figure emerged from the shadows. It was a sleek black man. He wasn't hostile, at least not yet. "I've been tracking you," he said with a low growl, his voice calm yet dangerous. "You're not the only ones who know about the cure." Axel and Ava exchanged glances, unsure of whether to trust the stranger. "Who are you?" Ava demanded, her blade at the ready. "My name is Orion," he replied. "I've been fighting to survive in this chaos just like you. But I have information you don't. There's a group of rogues who've discovered the truth about the virus and how it enhances special DNA just like mine. They don't want the cure. They believe that the new world belongs to us, the strongest, and they'll do anything to make sure that cure never sees the light of day." Ava's eyes narrowed. "And what about you? Why are you telling us this?" "Because I'm not like them," Orion said. "I've seen what this virus does. It may have made me stronger, faster, but it's also destroying who we are. If they succeed, there will be nothing left of the world we once knew. We need the cure before it's too late." With the new information, Axel and Ava realized their mission had become even more complicated. Not only did they have to find the cure, but they also had to stop the rogue who wanted to destroy it. "Why would anyone want to destroy the cure?" Axel asked, confused. "What do they gain from living in a world like this?" Orion shook his head. "They believe that the virus has given them ultimate power. In this new world, the strongest rule, and they think they're invincible. They see the cure as a threat to their dominance." Ava gripped her fists, anger boiling beneath her calm expression. "Then we'll stop them. We'll find the cure and make sure it's used." But even as they spoke, Axel couldn't shake the feeling that they were racing against more than just time. The rogues were well organized, and they wouldn't go down without a fight. "We need to move quickly," Axel said. "Every second we waste gives them more time to find the cure and destroy it." With Orion now joining their team, they set off on the next leg of their journey. But the road ahead was far from safe. As they ventured deeper into the city, they encountered more mutated creatures, each one more fearsome than the last. The rogue had left traps and ambushes along the way, determined to stop anyone who sought the cure. As the three fought side by side, Axel began to notice changes in their dynamic. Ava, who had once been independent, now relied on Axel and Orion for support in battle. Her trust in them was growing, and Axel could see the weight of her personal loss beginning to lift, even if only slightly. Orion, too, began to show signs of loyalty. While initially distant and secretive, he proved himself time and again in combat, putting himself at risk to protect Ava and Axel. Despite his dark past, Orion seemed committed to their cause. But trust was fragile in this world, and both Axel and Ava knew that they couldn't let their guard down, not even for a moment. With each step they took, they drew closer to the lab and to the truth that could save or doom them all. At the end of the day, as the city's ruins stretched out before them, Axel, Ava, and Orion paused for a moment of reflection. They had uncovered terrible truths, but they had also forged an unbreakable bond. The fight wasn't over, not by a long shot, but together, they stood a chance. Their journey was far from finished, but for the first time since the outbreak, Axel felt something stir in his heart. Hope. And that hope, he knew, was what would carry them through the darkness ahead. Chapter 6. The Jungle. Axel, Ava, and Orion, now a team, reached the edge of the city where the urban chaos gave way to the jungle. A sense of fear appeared as the jungle stretched out before them, thick with towering trees, twisted vines, and a chorus of unsettling animal sounds. This was no ordinary wilderness. The same virus that had ruined the city had flown into the jungle, mutating its inhabitants into deadly predators unlike any they had ever faced. Axel glanced at Ava, her determined eyes scanning the dense grassland ahead. "This place feels like a trap waiting to spring," he said, clutching his machine gun tighter. Ava nodded, wiping sweat from her face. "We've been through worse. We just have to stay sharp." The moment they stepped into the jungle, they were assaulted by the overwhelming humidity and the smell of rotting vegetation. The ground represses beneath their boots, making every step feel like a struggle. A mutated jungle cat with fur boiling and eyes glowing a dying green leaped from the shadows. Its growl was deep, more beast than animal. Orion fired first, but the creature was fast. Axel managed to roll out of the way as it jumped, while Ava threw a grenade that exploded just in time, sending the cat's mutated body crashing into a nearby tree. "Nice one," Orion yelled, but the relief was short-lived. The jungle was alive with threats. From above, venomous snakes with swollen jaws, and from the underbrush, swarms of giant, infected insects buzzed toward them. Axel and Ava fought back to back, their movements in sync as if they had been partners for years. Every swing of Ava's machete and every shot from Axel's gun was a step closer to their goal, but the constant battles were wearing them down. As they ventured deeper, Axel began to second-guess their path. The jungle was confusing, each direction looking the same. He noticed Ava's sharp focus falter, her eyes occasionally going blank. "You good?" Axel asked, concern creeping into his voice. "I'm fine," she snapped, though her expression told a different story. Axel knew she was pushing herself too hard, driven by the need to avenge her family, but there was no time to slow down. Every moment they lingered was a moment closer to death. They stumbled upon a hidden path marked by old, faded warning signs. Danger, biohazard. This was it, the way to the secret lab, but it was heavily guarded by traps. Mechanical buzzes and clicks echoed, and the ground was littered with half-sprung snares and tripwires. Ava led the way, carefully avoiding each one, but a misstep sent a spike trap flying toward her. Axel jumped, knocking her out of the way just in time. They crashed to the ground, tangled in vines. For a moment, they just lay there, breaths heavy, the near miss sinking in. "Thanks," Ava said, her voice strained but grateful. "No problem." We've got each other's backs, right? Axel replied, pulling her up. Their bond, forged in the fires of battle, was unspoken but unbreakable. They were not just surviving, they were surviving together. Suddenly, a new threat emerged. Zombie animals with deformed enhancements, oversized muscles, heightened senses, and unnatural speed. These creatures were unlike the others. They seemed to hunt with a purpose, as if driven by an intelligence far beyond basic instincts. One of the beasts, a bear-like horror with dots of decayed fur and exposed bone, roared as it charged. Axel and Ava fired, but the bullets seemed to have little effect. The creature charged toward Orion, smashing through trees. Ava was thrown back, hitting the ground hard. The bear lunged for her, but Axel and Orion, driven by sheer desperation, managed to divert its attention with a well-placed shot to its exposed eye. The creature stalled just long enough for Ava to recover, rolling to her feet and slashing at its throat with a combat knife. The beast let out a final, blood-chilling roar before collapsing, lifeless. "Are you okay?" Axel asked, rushing to Ava's side. She nodded, catching her breath. "I'm starting to think we bit off more than we can chew. I'm okay too. Thanks for asking," Orion said, smiling. Axel smirked, despite the situation. "You think? Just wait until we get to that lab. This is only the warm-up." As they continued, they stumbled upon old military bunkers half buried under the jungle's continuous growth. Inside, they found rusted weapons, outdated survival gear, and documents hinting at the jungle's role in the virus's origin. It was more than just a bioweapon testing ground. It was a prepared ground for an apocalypse. The documents revealed that the virus had been designed to evolve, making it impossible to control once released into the ecosystem. Axel read aloud, Phase 3, Environmental Adaptation. Subjects show increased aggression, resilience, and dominating behavior. They were planning to weaponize the entire environment, Ava said, her voice with disbelief and anger. This wasn't just about creating super soldiers or targeted bioweapons. They wanted to control nature itself. Orion scanned the surroundings nervously. We're in the heart of their experiment. No wonder this place is crawling with mutated freaks. Just when they thought they had seen it all, they were ambushed by a group of survivors who had gone rogue, led by a scientist who had once worked on the virus project. He was mentally deranged, a shadow of his former self, convinced that the only way to survive was to keep the virus alive. His group had formed a twisted belief that the virus was the next step in evolution, and they were determined to stop anyone from finding the cure. "We won't let you destroy the new world," the scientist said, smiling, raising a modified rifle. His followers, infected but still functional, circled around Axel, Ava, and Orion. A tense standoff followed, but Ava's quick thinking saved them. She used one of the booby traps against the rogue survivors, triggering a chain reaction of explosions that scattered their attackers and gave them a narrow escape. As the smoke cleared, Ava and Axel shared a look of firm determination. "We need to get to that lab and end this," Ava said, her voice steady. "This isn't just about us anymore. It's about stopping anyone from ever using this virus again." Axel nodded. They were bruised, battered, and on the edge of exhaustion, but they were more determined than ever. The jungle had tested them, pushing them to their limits and revealing their deepest fears, but it had also solidified their purpose. Together, they pressed on, their resolve stronger than ever. The lab was close, and with it, the hope of not just survival, but redemption. Chapter 7. Love in the Midst of Chaos. The night in the jungle was thick with tension, the sounds of unseen creatures echoing through the trees. Axel, Ava, and Orion found a spot to camp, surrounded by thick leaves that offered some cover. The air was wet, and the distant roars of mutated creatures reminded them that danger was always close. A small fire between them, providing warmth and a brief relief from the non-stop battles they had faced. As the flames floated, casting shadows on their faces, Axel and Ava finally found a moment to catch their breath. Axel stared into the fire, his thoughts heavy. "I haven't told anyone this in a long time," he began, his voice filled with a mix of regret and sorrow. "I lost a comrade on a mission just like this. We were supposed to be unstoppable, but we made one mistake. I made one mistake." He tightened his fists, the pain of the memory evident. Ava listened, her gaze softening. She understood loss all too well. "I lost my family when the outbreak started," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "They were everything to me. I've been fighting ever since, trying to make sense of it all." Her eyes met Axel's, and for a moment, they were just two people who had lost everything, finding comfort in each other's presence. The emotional weight of their stories hung in the air, drawing them closer. Their shared vulnerability sparked something deeper, and before they knew it, the distance between them disappeared. They leaned in, and their lips met, a tender, fleeting moment of connection amid the chaos. It was a kiss filled with unspoken promises, a brief escape from the dangers surrounding them. Just as they pulled away, the peace they had found was shattered. A series of growls erupted from the darkness, and before they could react, mutated animals burst through the trees. These were no ordinary creatures. Their eyes glowed with a wild intensity, and their bodies were mutated beyond recognition. Zombie beasts enhanced by the virus. The leader, a massive, disfigured panther with razor-sharp claws, charged at Axel. Orion positioned himself between the attackers and Ava. Ava dived into action, her instincts sharp and her movements precise. She grabbed her combat knife, slicing through the thick air as she fought off the first wave of beasts. Axel, armed with his machine gun, fired controlled bursts, trying to keep the creatures at bay. The battle was fierce and chaotic. The panther's claws narrowly missed Axel's throat as he ducked, rolling to the side. Ava managed to stab one of the mutated animals, but it took several hits before it finally went down. Orion, with his formidable strength, tackled a snarling wolf-like creature, biting and clawing to protect his pack. Amid the chaos, Ava caught sight of Axel struggling against the panther. It was overpowering him, its size and strength pushing him to the ground. Without hesitating, Ava threw herself at the beast, using all her weight to drive it off Axel. The panther turned its attention to her, swiping with its deadly claws. Axel, seizing the moment, grabbed a fallen grenade, pulled the pin, and tossed it into the midst of the attacking animals. The grenade exploded with a very loud noise, sending a shockwave through the jungle. Dust filled the air, and the mutated animals, caught in the blast, were thrown back. The panther let out a final growl before collapsing. Axel and Ava shielded their faces from the blast, feeling the heat and force wash over them. When the dust settled, the creatures lay scattered. Axel and Ava were breathing heavily, cuts and bruises marking their bodies. Orion, though exhausted, stood tall, his eyes scanning for any remaining threats. For a moment, it seemed the worst was over. Axel looked at Ava, his expression a mix of gratitude and something more. "You saved my life," he said, his voice raw with emotion. "I don't know how I can ever repay you." Ava gave a small, weary smile. "We're in this together, remember? We look out for each other." The bond between them had deepened, forged in the heat of battle. Despite the dangers that lay ahead, they knew they were stronger as a team. As they gathered themselves, they realized the attack wasn't just random, it was deliberate. The mutated animals were sent to stop them from reaching the lab. It was clear that someone, or something, was determined to keep the secrets of the virus hidden at all costs. This realization only fueled their determination. Axel and Ava packed up their camp, their movements swift and efficient. They knew they couldn't stay in one place for long. The jungle was dangerous, but they were more determined than ever to reach the secret lab and find the cure. Their mission was no longer just about survival, it was about uncovering the truth and stopping those who would let the world burn. As they moved deeper into the jungle, side by side, the connection between Axel and Ava grew stronger. They were not just comrades in arms, they were allies bound by loss, love, and a shared determination to fight for a better future. The jungle seemed darker than before, but with each step, they grew closer to their goal. The stakes were higher, the challenges greater, but Axel, Ava, and Orion were ready for whatever lay ahead. Their journey was far from over, and the secrets of the virus were waiting to be uncovered. And as they pressed on, they knew one thing for certain. They would not back down. Not now, not ever. Chapter 8. The Twist. As they move cautiously through the dense jungle, the canopy above blocking most of the sunlight. Each step forward feels like a step deeper into a trap, but they press on, driven by the need to uncover the truth. The air is thick with tension, and every rustle in the leaves sends a jolt of adrenaline through their veins. The secret lab they've been searching for is finally within reach, and with it, the answers they desperately need. As they near the lab, the jungle's undergrowth starts to thin, revealing a massive, desolate facility hidden behind layers of vines and moss. The sight of it is both intriguing and threatening. This is the heart of the outbreak, the place where it all began. Axel clenches his fists, feeling the weight of his mission more than ever. Ava's eyes scan the surroundings, every instinct telling her that something is off. Suddenly, Orion steps forward, his usual calm attitude replaced by an unsettling rage. "There it is," he says, pointing to the lab. But something in his voice sends a chill down Axel's spine. Before they can react, Orion's expression shifts and a dark smile spreads across his face. "You've come so far," he says mockingly. "It's a shame it ends here." Axel and Ava exchange a look of confusion, but it's too late. The sound of rustling grows louder, and within seconds, a group of mutated creatures emerges from the jungle, surrounding them. These aren't just the zombie animals they've faced before. They are faster, stronger, and more terrifying, with glowing eyes that seem almost intelligent. At the forefront stands Orion, their once trusted ally now revealed as the mastermind behind the chaos. "Orion, what is this?" Axel demands, gripping his weapon tightly. Orion's eyes blinked with malice. "You never really understood, did you? This isn't about finding a cure. It's about power, control, and evolution. These creatures, they are the next step, and I am their leader." Ava's heart sinks as she realizes the depth of Orion's betrayal. He had been with them through every fight, every close call, and now he stands against them, orchestrating the very nightmare they've been trying to end. The mutated animals, the zombies, the traps in the jungle, it was all part of his twisted game. Axel's mind races, piecing together the puzzle. Orion's strategic insights, his strange ability to navigate the jungle, and his calmness in the face of danger now make sense. He was never on their side. He was guiding them into his trap, using them to eliminate threats and lead him straight to the lab's secrets. Orion raises his hand, signaling the mutated creatures to attack. Axel and Ava are forced into a desperate battle, their weapons blazing as they fend off the attack. The jungle erupts into chaos, bullets flying, creatures snarling, and the sound of metal clashing. Ava's sharp reflexes keep them alive, but the odds are overwhelming. For every creature they take down, 2 more appear, and they are quickly losing ground. Axel and Ava fight with everything they've got, but it's clear they're outnumbered. In the heat of battle, Ava gets cornered by a monstrous wolf-like creature, its jaws snapping dangerously close. Axel charges in, barely managing to pull her away in time. The two share a brief glance, a mix of fear, anger, and unspoken understanding. They can't afford to lose each other now. With no other option, Axel triggers a grenade, creating a massive explosion that momentarily scatters the creatures. The blast provides them with a slim window to escape, and they sprint towards the thick jungle, leaving Orion and his army behind. As they run, the weight of the betrayal sinks in. Orion was more than an enemy, he was a puppet master, manipulating every step of their journey. Breathless and battered, Axel and Ava finally find a moment of rest. They collapse behind a bunch of rock, their minds racing from the shocking twist. Axel slams his fist into the ground, furious at himself for trusting Orion. Ava places a hand on his shoulder, her expression hardened but not defeated. We trusted him, but now we know. And now we fight smarter. The betrayal forces Axel to confront his inner turmoil. He's always been the leader, the one who keeps it together, but now his confidence is shaken. Every decision feels like it's been tainted by Orion's deceit. He's been blindsided, and the realization of how deeply they've been played cuts deeper than any wound. Ava, however, refuses to let despair take hold. She leans in closer to Axel, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. This doesn't change who we are. Orion might have led us here, but we made it this far because we're strong together. Her words ignite a spark in Axel. Despite the betrayal, they still have each other, and their mission is far from over. The lab is still within reach, and with it, the chance to end this nightmare once and for all. But they need a new plan, one that doesn't just involve survival, but striking back. As the two regroup, they notice something odd, a faint glow emanating from Ava's backpack. It's a device she picked up earlier, something they had assumed was just old lab tech. But now it's activated, projecting a holographic map of the lab, complete with hidden entrances and security systems. It's a piece of the puzzle Orion never saw coming. Axel's eyes widen as he takes in the map. This is how we beat him, he says, his voice filled with renewed determination. Orion thinks he's won, but we have the upper hand now. Ava smiles, her resolve stronger than ever. Then let's make sure he knows who he's dealing with. Chapter 9. The Lab's Secrets. Axel and Ava stand before the heavily fortified entrance of the secret lab, their hearts pounding with anticipation and fear. The once hidden facility is now surrounded by an army of zombies and mutated animals, creating a near impenetrable barrier. The lab seems odd. Metallic walls are covered in vines and waste, and evidence of the chaos that has unfolded since the virus was unleashed. Armed with automatic rifles, explosives, and determination, they know that this is their last chance to end the nightmare. They carefully advance, using stealth to avoid detection. The creatures, however, are on high alert, patrolling the perimeter with terrifying efficiency. The tension is obvious, and every step feels like a gamble with death. As they approach the first checkpoint, a mutated zombie wolf lunges from the shadows. Axel's reflexes kick in, and he fires a burst of bullets, dropping the creature instantly. Ava takes down another that charges from behind, her aim steady and true. "Keep moving," Axel shouts as more creatures emerge from the darkness. They push forward, dodging attacks and setting off small explosive traps to clear the way. The noise attracts even more enemies, but the chaos plays to their advantage, providing a cover of smoke. As they break through the final line of defense, they reach the lab's massive steel doors. Ava sets up a timed explosive, and they take cover just as the doors blow open, sending fragments flying. Inside, the lab is a pure contrast to the outside world. Pure white walls, advanced technology, and rows of containment units reveal the true nature of the facility. It's not just a lab, it's a command center for a military project. Axel and Ava quickly discover classified documents detailing the origins of the virus. It was designed to create an army of super soldiers, enhanced with the traits of various predatory animals. The outbreak was never an accident. It was a deliberate test that went horribly wrong. As they dig deeper, Ava finds a secure vault labeled Cure. Her hands shake as she punches in the access code they retrieved from an earlier survivor. The vault hisses open, revealing vials of a glowing blue liquid. The cure that could reverse the effects of the virus. Relief washes over them, but it's short-lived. A sudden, chilling laugh echoes through the lab. They turn to see Orion, circled by his gang of enhanced humans and mutated beasts. His eyes gleam with insane, triumphant light. "Did you really think you could just walk in here and take what's mine?" he said, his voice dripping with spite. Axel and Ava are outnumbered and cornered, but they refuse to back down. This ends now, Orion, Axel growls, stepping forward with his gun raised. The tension in the air is electric, a final standoff that will decide the fate of everything they've fought for. Orion's gang attacks first, and the lab erupts into chaos. Axel and Ava fight with every bit of strength they have left, dodging bullets and claws alike. The battle is fierce, a violent dance of survival in the tight corridors. Axel throws a grenade, taking out a group of attackers, while Ava engages Orion in a brutal hand-to-hand fight. She blocks his punches, countering with swift, calculated strikes, but Orion's enhancements give him the upper hand. Pinned against a wall, Ava struggles to break free as Orion smiles, "You're too weak to save anyone." But Axel, seeing his partner in peril, tackles Orion, sending them both crashing into a table of lab equipment. Medicine bottles shatter, and sparks fly as the machinery shorts out. Axel manages to grab a shard of glass, plunging it into Orion's shoulder. Orion roars in pain, momentarily unconscious. "Now, Ava!" Axel shouts. Seizing the opportunity, Ava delivers a powerful kick that sends Orion lying on the floor. But Orion isn't done. With a final, desperate move, he pulls a hidden knife, lunging at Axel. Ava reacts instinctively, firing her last bullet straight into Orion's chest. The shot rings out, and Orion collapses, his reign of terror finally at an end. Breathing heavily, Axel and Ava take a moment to process their victory. They've done it. They've defeated the man who betrayed them and endangered countless lives. But their mission isn't over yet. Carefully, they retrieve the vials of the cure, leaving behind the wreckage of Orion's twisted ambitions. "We need to check if he's still alive," Ava said. Chapter 10. The Final Showdown. Axel's mind raced, thinking about their journey, all the battles fought, and every near-death experience. This was it. Orion was down. As they approached where Orion was laying, Axel exchanges a determined glance with Ava, who nodded, her face set in aggressive resolve. Before they knew it, there stood Orion, his eyes glowing with an unnatural red color, his muscles rippling with newfound strength. Orion had injected himself with the most potent version of the virus, transforming him into a creature of pure power. "Well, shall we have another dance?" he said, smiling, his voice deep and distorted. Alex tightens his grip on his weapon. Orion laughed, a chilling, guttural sound that echoed through the lab. "You still don't get it, do you? This isn't about power or control, it's evolution. I am what humanity should have become." Without a warning, Orion launched at them at superhuman speed. Axel barely had time to react, dodging a brutal punch that cracked the floor where he'd stood. Ava leaped into action, using her agility to maneuver around Orion, but his reflexes were faster than before. He grabbed her mid-air and tossed her across the room, slamming her into a wall. She hit the ground hard, gasping for breath. Axel charged, engaging Orion in a series of strikes, each blow deflected by Orion's enhanced strength. The sound of firsts meeting flesh and the clang of metal filled the air. Orion was relentless, his mutated form absorbing every hit as if it was nothing. Axel's combat skills were extraordinary, but Orion's monstrous power was overwhelming. Ava struggled to her feet, her vision blurred, but she forced herself back into the fight. She threw a makeshift explosive device at Orion, temporarily blinding him with a burst of smoke. Axel seized the moment, delivering a powerful kick that sent Orion staggering backward. "You think you've won?" Orion snarled, his voice boiling with rage. "This is just the beginning." Without a warning, Orion launched at them at superhuman speed. Axel barely had time to react, dodging a brutal punch that cracked the floor where he'd stood. Ava leaped into action, using her agility to maneuver around Orion, but his reflexes were faster than before. He grabbed her mid-air and tossed her across the room, slamming her into a wall. She hit the ground hard, gasping for breath. Axel charged, engaging Orion in a series of strikes, each blow deflected by Orion's enhanced strength. The sound of fists meeting flesh and the clang of metal filled the air. Orion was relentless, his mutated form absorbing every hit as if it was nothing. Axel's combat skills were extraordinary, but Orion's monstrous power was overwhelming. Ava struggled to her feet, her vision blurred, but she forced herself back into the fight. She threw a makeshift explosive device at Orion, temporarily blinding him with a burst of smoke. Axel seized the moment, delivering a powerful kick that sent Orion staggering backward. "You think you've won?" Orion snarled, his voice boiling with rage. "This is just the beginning." Before Axel could respond, Orion launched counterattack, his claws slashing through the air with lethal precision. Axel blocked, but the force of the impact sent him crashing into a console, sparks flying as electronics short-circuited. The situation was intense. Orion was too strong, too fast, and it felt like the end. But just as Orion was about to deliver the final blow, the lab door burst open, and a figure emerged from the shadows. Leo, Axel's brother. Axel's heart skipped a beat. He could hardly believe his eyes. Leo, who was thought to be dead, stood before them, transformed and alive. His body bore the revealing sign of mutation, but unlike the others, his eyes were clear, his expression determined. "Leo? How?" Axel's voice filled with disbelief. Leo stepped forward, his movement smooth and powerful, revealing the superhuman abilities he'd gained from his near-death encounter with the mutated beast. "I was saved by the very thing that nearly killed me. This virus didn't destroy me, it made me stronger." Orion's eyes widened in shock and fury. "You were supposed to be dead." Leo smiled coldly. "Sorry to disappoint." The battle resumed, but this time, Axel and Ava weren't alone. Leo moved with unmatched speed and strength, matching Orion blow to blow. The lab became a battleground of titans, with Axel and Ava fighting alongside Leo in a coordinated assault. The clash of superhuman powers shook the walls, roof falling as they exchanged brutal strikes. Orion's arrogance began to decrease as he realized he was no longer invincible. Leo's enhanced abilities were a perfect counter to Orion's strength. Every punch, every kick, was met with a calculated response. Ava used her agility to disorient Orion, while Axel's precision strikes targeted his weakened points. Their teamwork was perfect, and for the first time, Orion was on the defensive. The final moments of the battle was a blur of chaos and intensity. Orion, hopeless and angered, unleashed a devastating attack, but Lo intercepted, catching Orion's arm mid-swing and twisted it with a offensive crack. Orion roared in pain, his mutation finally showing signs of instability. Leo looked at Alex and Ava. "Finish him." With one last combined effort, Axel and Ava launched their final assault. Axel's blade pierced Orion's mutated heart, while Ava's explosive arrow hit the containment unit, igniting a massive fire that consumed the virus samples. Orion collapsed, his body convulsing as the mutation turned against him. The lab erupted in flames. Axel, Ava, and Leo stood together, battered but victorious. They had not only defeated Orion, but also ensured the virus would never again threaten humanity. As they made their escape, the lab collapsing behind them, Axel looked at Leo, grateful beyond words. They had lost so much, but they had also gained something priceless. A renewed sense of hope and the strength to keep fighting for a better future. Chapter 11. The Escape. The lab was in chaos, alarms murmured, and the walls trembled as explosions echoed through the corridors. Axel, Ava, and Leo rushed through the maze-like structure, dodging falling rubble and evading the few remaining guards. The once imposing facility was now a crumbling tomb of secrets, and with each passing second, their window for escape narrowed. Axel clutched his side, blood seeping through his fingers from a deep gash caused during their battle with Orion. Despite the pain, his determination kept him moving forward. Ava, ever vigilant, scouted ahead, her eyes sharp and focused as she led the way through the crumbling building. Leo, a new yet crucial ally, using his newfound strength to shield them from falling rubble. As they neared the exit, the floor beneath them cracked open, revealing a gaping rift that stretched several feet across. On the other side lay the exit, but now the team was trapped on the wrong side of a seemingly impossible jump. "Axel, we need to find another way," Ava yelled, her voice barely audible over the roaring destruction around them. "No time," Axel responded, pain etched across his face. He eyed the gap, calculating the distance with urgency. "We jump. No second guesses." One by one, they took their turns. Leo went first, easily clearing the gap with his enhanced abilities. Ava followed, using her agility to spring across the void. Finally, it was Axel's turn. With every ounce of strength he had left, he pushed himself forward, narrowly grabbing the edge as his feet dangled over the darkness below. Ava and Leo pulled him up, and they moved on without a moment to spare. As they burst through the lab's exit, they were met by a tragic sight. The jungle was crawling with zombies and mutated animals, drawn to the noise of the explosions. The mutated creatures, once their enemies, now formed a barrier between them and freedom. Leo spotted a weapons cache left behind by the retreating guards. "We can use these," he said, tossing an assault rifle to Ava and a pair of grenades to Axel. They had no choice but to fight their way through. Axel, despite his injury, moved with precision, taking down the nearest threats while Ava and Leo covered him from the sides. The grenades proved invaluable, clearing a path through the group of zombies. Their teamwork was flawless. As they pushed forward, they spotted a group of guards emerging from the trees, drawn by the commotion. Together, they overwhelmed their attackers in a burst of gunfire and explosive. However, just as safety seemed within reach, Axel stumbled, collapsing to his knees. His wound had worsened, and he was losing blood fast. Ava rushed to his side, fear and concern flashing in her eyes. Leo scanned the area, knowing they couldn't stay exposed for long. "We have to keep moving," Leo urged, his voice tight with urgency. "I can carry him." Axel shook his head, gritting his teeth against the pain. "No. If I slow you down, you'll never make it." Ava knelt beside Axel, refusing to leave him behind. "We're not losing anyone else, not today." She tore a piece of fabric from her sleeve and tightly wrapped Axel's wound. It wasn't much, but it would have to do. Together, they lifted him to his feet, and with Leo's strength and Ava's support, they pushed forward, refusing to give up. Just as they cleared the last area of the jungle, the lab behind them exploded. The shockwave knocked them to the ground, and they watched as fire consumed the facility. The virus, the experiments, and every dark secret the lab held were gone in an instant. Axel, Ava, and Leo lay on the jungle floor, breathing heavily but alive. The nightmare was finally over, and though the cost had been high, they had secured the cure and ended the threat. As they gathered their strength to stand, the sun began to rise, casting a warm, golden light over the ruined landscape. It was a new dawn, not just for them, but for everyone they had fought to protect. Ava looked at Axel, her eyes reflecting both relief and admiration. "We did it," she whispered, as if she could hardly believe they had survived. Axel, still gripping his side, managed a weak smile. "Yeah, we did." Leo stood beside them, silent but proud, knowing that his unexpected journey had led to this moment of redemption. Together, the three of them began the long walk back, each step a testament to their effort and the unbreakable bond they had forged. The mission was over, but their story had only just begun. Chapter 12. New Beginning. Axel, Ava, and Leo slowly walked through the city's deserted streets, their footsteps echoing in the odd silence. The once vibrant city, now a shadow of its former self, slowly began to show signs of life as they approached the quarantine zone. The sun was setting, casting a golden shade over the crumbling skyscrapers, a symbol of hope rising from the ruins. Commander Iris stood at the makeshift gate, surrounded by a small team of guards and medics. The moment Axel and his team appeared, a wave of relief swept through the crowd. People emerged from their tents and shelters, faces weary, but eyes filled with anticipation. The sight of Leo, alive and walking, was a shock to everyone. Many had thought him lost forever. Axel. Leo. Commander Iris called out, her voice breaking with emotion. She rushed forward, embracing them both. You did it. You brought back the cure. Axel nodded, handing over the vial containing the cure they'd fought so hard to retrieve. The moment felt strange. Everything they had endured, the battles, betrayals, and losses, had led to this moment. The city's fate now rested in the small vial Commander Iris held in her hands. Medics quickly took the vial to start the mass production of the cure. The weight of their journey was beginning to settle on Axel's shoulders. For the first time in weeks, he allowed himself a moment of relief. Leo, still struggling with his newfound abilities, stood beside Axel, his presence a silent reminder of both the tragedy they had averted and the personal battles yet to be won. Despite his abilities, Leo was still his brother, very loyal, but now forever changed. Welcome back, Leo, Commander Iris said, shaking his hand firmly. We thought we lost you. Leo smiled, though it didn't quite reach his eyes. I was lost, but Axel and Ava found me. The camp buzzed with renewed hope. Axel watched as people began to organize themselves, preparing for the distribution of the cure. There was a sense of unity and purpose in the air. The survivors, who had been living in fear and uncertainty, now had a chance at a new beginning. As the city began to heal, so did the bonds between its people. Relationships that had been strained by the harsh conditions of survival slowly began to mend. Families reunited, and old friendships were rekindled. Ava found herself surrounded by grateful faces, people who had come to thank her for her bravery. She had always been the quiet strength behind Axel, but now she stood in her own light, a hero in her own right. Later, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Axel and Ava sat on the rooftop of a nearby building, overlooking the quarantine zone. It was peaceful, a contrast to the chaos they had endured. You know, when this all started, I never thought we'd make it, Axel admitted, his voice tinged with vulnerability. We lost so much, but we gained this. He gestured to the crowded camp below, a symbol of their hard-won victory. Ava nodded, resting her head on his shoulder. We found something worth fighting for, she said softly. Not just the cure, but each other. Axel looked at Ava, her face illuminated by the soft glow of the city lights. There was something about this moment that felt like the beginning of a new chapter, not just for them, but for everyone. They had faced their darkest fears and emerged stronger, braver, and more united than ever. Leo joined them, sitting on Axel's other side. For a while, they sat in comfortable silence, watching as the first stars appeared in the sky. Leo's presence was a reminder of the past, but also a promise of a better future. I thought I'd lost my family, Leo said quietly, breaking the silence. But I see now that family isn't just about blood. It's about who stands by you when things get tough. Axel placed a hand on Leo's shoulder, squeezing it reassuringly. We'll figure this out together, Leo. All of us. The three of them stayed there, reflecting on their journey. The road ahead would not be easy, but they had faced the worst and come out stronger. They had saved a city and, in the process, discovered the true meaning of courage, loyalty, and love. The next morning, the first batch of the cure was administered. One by one, the infected were treated, and the quarantine zone began to shrink as people regained their health. The city, though scarred, was slowly returning to life. Axel and Ava stood at the edge of the quarantine zone, watching as the gates were finally opened. The nightmare was over and a new day was dawning. "We did it," Ava whispered, tears of relief and joy streaming down her face. Axel nodded, pulling her close. "Yeah, we did. And we'll keep fighting no matter what comes next." As the gates swung open, Axel, Ava, and Leo stepped forward, ready to face whatever the future held. Together, they had not only saved the city, but found a new sense of purpose, and in each other, they had found a home.